Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. With less than 3 weeks to go before Americans make their voices heard, an issue that has honestly helped define this show since its inception, not to mention my own life in recent years. It's not a personal issue for me. It's just an important issue to me as a citizen, is now front and center in campaign 2024, and it's about time. I'm speaking about the transing of our children and women's rights and girls' rights. There are few, if any, shows that have done more on this topic than we have here at the MK Show. Way back in October of 2020, we launched in September of 2020 on episode 12, when we were still just an audio podcast, we brought on Abigail Schreier about her groundbreaking, life-changing book. Today, the book that people don't want you to read or us to talk about. But guess what? We're going to do it. It's called Irreversible Damage, and it is important. The book is about the number of girls who are declaring themselves transgender and how that number is skyrocketing. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Imagine waking up one day to find out your home no longer belongs to you, that someone somewhere has stolen your property right out from under you. It sounds unthinkable, but this is a real thing. It's sad. It's a sad reality for some American homeowners, and it's a risk for anyone who owns property. It's called house stealing, per the FBI. It's a form of real estate fraud where scammers leverage loopholes in the system to fraudulently transfer your home's title into their name. Then they take out a bunch of loans against your property or even sell it behind your back. By the time you find out, the scammer is long gone, leaving you, the legitimate homeowner, to clean up the mess. But right now, triple lock protection is available through HomeTitleLock.com, offering 24/7 title monitoring, alerts, and restoration services. You can sign up today at HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code Megyn for 30 days of protection for free and a comprehensive title scan, just to make sure you're not already a victim. That's promo code Megyn and HomeTitleLock.com, or by using the link below. Since then, we've covered the dangerous ideology that has been forced on us and our children, in our schools and our communities at length. From the genital surgeries on healthy young boys and girls, cutting off perfectly healthy body parts, to the detransitioners who have been hurt by this insane ideology, who then get ignored by the media and rejected by the community that love-bombed them into doing this to themselves in the first place. We've discussed many times the impact on sports as boys and men invade women's spaces and sports and take their prize money and take the glory of winning away from them in matches that are neither fair nor safe. Back in June of 2023, it was episode 564 that I stated publicly, after I had on Kelly J. Keene, who really convinced me that it was time to stop using these so-called preferred pronouns. I have resolved to base my conversations around gender on the same tenets that already govern my life: truth and reality. I will not use preferred pronouns, a decision motivated by a growing alarm over women's rights and the safety of children. I will speak to a trans person kindly and with empathy. In their presence, I will likely try to avoid pronouns altogether, as I have no wish to intentionally provoke or upset anyone. But I will not take this gateway drug anymore, because I have a daughter, because I am a woman, an adult human female. I get emotional just hearing that. It's just what we've done to ourselves, what we've done to our kids, what we've done in seeding this whole argument to the trans activists, who are the worst people. Honestly, they're just so vicious. They're men. 9 times out of 10, it's men posing as women who try to stifle and shut up women and girls who are speaking up for themselves and their rights. It's gone on for too long. While we were all asleep, they got laws changed in state after state. And only now has the sleeping giant been awoken to what they did. And we need to fight back. I've often mentioned that this topic has turned me into an almost single-issue voter, and I did predict that this would be a critical topic in the 2024 race. Didn't realize it would take quite so long, but better late than never. Finally, these Republicans are waking up to the fact that the electorate is not in favor of this stuff. Not Democrats or Republicans, never mind independents. In fact, according to an article that just dropped, it was October 8th in the New York Times, the Trump campaign's most aired ad in recent weeks about Kamala Harris has been along these lines.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This past Wednesday, Fox News' Bret Baier sat down with Vice President Harris and asked her about the ad.
Are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually follows.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened
presidency.
in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law. I think it's he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different.
Oh, quite remote, you say. And yet that quite remote issue is making headlines on both the left and the right and becoming a serious problem for Team Blue. Because in reality, Vice President Harris, it impacts all of us, every single person who gives a damn about children and about women's rights. According to the Times, privately, quote, Democratic strategists concede that the transgender attacks are taking a toll in some states, end quote. And guess which states those are? The critical swing states in this election. The Times noting that the ads have been running in key Senate races, including in Montana. Don't forget, the Republicans, they're going to win West Virginia's Senate race. If they get Montana, they get control of the Senate as long as they can hold the seats they now have. In Montana, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Texas, and Wisconsin. Yes, Texas is tighter than the Republicans would like it to be, but this issue has taken center stage. The Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote on October 13th that, quote, transgender sports is a 2024 sleeper issue. Welcome to the party, Wall Street Journal. My God, it's just so annoying. Sleeper issue? Like, everybody who listens to this show knows that this has been an important issue for a long time. It's just that these highbrow mainstream media types have been totally ignoring it. Oh, like her. It's a remote issue. Really? Sterilizing and chopping up the healthy body parts of children. It's just it's a sleeper issue. Screw you. The Wall Street Journal went so far to suggest it might cost Democrats control of Congress this year. Hello, McFly. Hello. We've been telling you all along. This is a huge issue. It doesn't have the support of the majority of Americans. What it needed was media coverage. That's it. We'll get to Kamala Harris trying to claim, Trump, oh, he did it too. That's a lie. But I'm going to get to exactly what she did. She says, I follow the law. I follow the law. No. She worked in California to change the law to allow this. She worked to change the law. Now she looks Bret Baier in the eye and says, oh, I have no agency. What do you mean? I'm just going to follow the law, whatever it is when I get there. Thanks to Obama, the policy was, we're going to pay for these procedures for these inmates. Trump got in there and he worked to change that. He challenged it legally and he challenged it administratively. And then by the time he left, after he left, a prisoner wound up having a procedure under Joe Biden on the taxpayer dime. Joe Biden liked the old procedure. He wanted the Obama policy. of let's pay for it all. But now they're trying to pin that on Trump because he didn't actually get the policy reversed, though he worked against it while president. That is apples to oranges. I mean, that you cannot compare. She worked actively as AG of California to change the policy, which did not allow it. She was 180 degrees away from where Trump is. All right, back to the Senate and how this is playing out. Ohio, the Senate races, as you know, and the House races too, they're not about swing states. They're about numbers, sheer raw numbers. The Republicans need to win two seats. And it's a great year for them to do it. And if they don't do it this year, it doesn't look good for them next time around because they're defending a lot more seats. So they're going to win West Virginia. And it looks good for them in Montana, though nothing's a lock. And if they could win another seat or two, it would give them some pad. And it would potentially cover maybe Texas, where Ted Cruz is in a real knife fight to save his seat. And possibly another. So they would like to run up their numbers. And by run up their numbers, I mean win by more than just by winning those two seats where it's, 51-49. They would love to have 53 if they could get it. So that's where these other states come in. Ohio. It's possible. It's possible for them. The Democrat is Sherrod Brown, and he's the incumbent. And he is dealing with the fallout right now from this ad. Watch.
It's just common sense.
Sherrod Brown talks about common sense, but Brown voted multiple times to allow transgender biological males to participate in girls' sports. Brown supported allowing minor children to receive sex change surgery.
All right, so Senator Brown has now released a counterattack ad suggesting this just isn't true. These are lies. And he is now getting hit by the left for that ad, in particular the folks at The Advocate, which is pro-LGBTQ. Right? So he's in a tough position because he's got to tell the normies in Ohio that he's not for all the stuff that he's for. And now the left-wing folks are kind of irritated. So no, they're not going to run over and vote for the Republican, but they might not vote if this is their big issue. It depresses the excitement, the enthusiasm, and so on. So it's not a great time for these incumbent Democrats to have this come up because they have very little wiggle room. Then there's Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin, who not so long ago was considered a shoo-in and now is apparently in more of a nail-biter in her race. Watch this.
As the mom of a daughter, I'm livid that boys are now being allowed to compete in girls' sports. It's just wrong. And I blame Tammy Baldwin.
You should. Because like most Democrats, she's on the wrong side of this issue. The issue is also front and center. It was at this week's fiery Senate debate down in Texas, where Republican Senator Ted Cruz is trying to fend off a stronger than expected challenge from Congressman Colin Allred. Watch this.
4 times he has come out for men playing in women's sports, for boys playing in girls' sports. He is a co-sponsor, and he voted for a law called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that boys be able to go in girls' bathrooms, in their locker rooms, and their changing rooms. He voted for it. That is his record. Congressman Allred was an NFL linebacker. It is not fair for a man to compete against women.
When Ted Cruz starts talking about team sports, you got to watch out because the only position he ever played was left out. And I'm not trying to be mean, Senator, but just sit this one out, please. Listen, I don't support boys playing girls' sports. I don't.
Why'd you vote for it?
No, stop. Let me speak.
It?
Let me speak. What I think is that folks should not be discriminated against.
He lied. He lied. He's a liar. All right, let's go through what Colin Allred. Oh, he's so likable. He's a former NFL football player. He's a native son in Texas, born and raised. He's a former linebacker. Sure, he's a manly man. He's going to look out for the young girls. First of all, he has no girls. Just FYI, he's got 2 sons. He has no daughters. Maybe he'd look at this differently if he did. And second of all, he's a liar, which is disqualifying. Please, my Texas viewers and listeners, and I know we have a ton of them. We can see where our biggest cities are. And we're big in Texas. I know this. Please listen to me now. Colin Allred not only is on the wrong side of this, but he lied to you. He lied right to you in that debate. It's not just like he took one little position that he's trying to disavow. I'll go through it with you. Here's his history. In March of 2023, he voted against H.R. 5, because he's a U.S. congressman. He voted against U.S. 5, the Parental Bill of Rights, which would require schools to notify parents about opening up sports to all genders and would require schools to obtain parental consent before they let a child change their gender markers or name or change their sex-based accommodations. All that said, that was saying, before my daughter shows up at your school and you start calling her Joe instead of Jane, and you start letting her go into the boys' room instead of the girls' room, where, by the way, she's probably not safe to pose as a boy with the other boys, you have to tell me. Let me tell you, this is so huge. All the studies show that well into the 90 percentile of kids who socially transition, which is what that is, will go on to the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones. Once they socially transition, it's almost impossible to undo it. They have skin in the game. They feel embarrassed. They feel they don't want to admit they made a mistake. And then you're off to sterilization and body parts being chopped off and a lifetime of difficulty, aggravation, and mental health problems. A school doing this without notifying the parents is child abuse. It is the most flagrant disregard of parental rights you can get. And so H.R. 5 was an attempt to say schools must notify parents before they allow that. Social transitioning is what they're talking about. And also before they decide to open up sports to all genders, which is a safety issue, not to mention a fairness issue. But he voted against it. Colin Allred voted against it. He would have men who look like he does, like the size of a linebacker, be able to come over into girls' field hockey and volleyball, tennis, you name it. And then he lied. He lied at that debate, saying that he never did any of this. And it's not true. His ad says he didn't do it. Here's his ad responding to Ted Cruz's ad, which attacked him on all this stuff. Listen to him lie more.
Ted Cruz is lying again, but now he's lying about our children. I'm a dad. I'm also a Christian. And my faith has taught me that all kids are God's kids. So let me be clear. I don't want boys playing girls' sports or any of this ridiculous stuff that Ted Cruz is saying. Ted Cruz is lying about my record because he can't defend his own. He's done nothing to secure the border. And he wants to raise the retirement age for Social Security. He's full of it. You know that. I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
He's a liar. Listen to this. He voted against, as a U.S. Congressman, H.R. 734, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. That act would have prohibited males from participating in school athletic programs meant for girls. He had the chance to ban it, and he refused. He refused. Can we play the ad again? Play the ad again.
Ted Cruz is lying again, but now he's lying about our children. I'm a dad. I'm also a Christian. And my faith has taught me that all kids are God's kids. So let me be clear. I don't want boys playing girls' sports or any of this ridiculous stuff that Ted Cruz is saying. Ted Cruz is lying about my record because he can't defend his own. He's done nothing to secure the border. And he wants to raise the retirement age for Social Security. He's full of it. You know that. I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
I don't want boys playing in girls' sports. He had the chance to sign on to a law that would have prohibited it, and he voted no. More than that, in June of 2023, he co-sponsored a law that, quote, would force public schools to allow biologically male athletes who identify as transgender on the girls' sports teams. He co-sponsored the law to require it in public schools. The blatant dishonesty. Colin Allred, you're a disgusting liar. The receipts are right here. It goes on. In March of 2023, he co-sponsored a resolution, quote, recognizing that it is the duty of the federal government to develop and implement a transgender Bill of Rights. It specifically calls for federal law to ensure that biological men can participate on sports teams and in programs that best align with their gender identity and use school facilities that best align with their gender identity. He just looked you in the eye and told you that wasn't true. He's not trying to allow boys into girls' sports. This is unbelievable. Back in February of 2021, he co-sponsored and voted for a revised version of the disgusting, quote, Equality Act. Under this act, an individual shall not be denied access to a shared facility, including a restroom, a locker room, and a dressing room that is in accordance with that individual's gender identity. He co-sponsored a mandate that would require boys to have access to your daughter's bathroom, locker room, and dressing room. That's Colin Allred. Ted Cruz has been fighting against all of this for years. It's the gall for this guy to stand on that debate stage and look at Ted Cruz and try to mock his athleticism as a kid. And, oh, big, tough linebacker, let me tell you about the sports. What you tried to do was make it so your sons can come into our daughter's locker room, sir. So screw you. It keeps going. I could go back. I mean, I have another page of Colin Allred's behavior on this. I think you get the picture. Don't vote for him. Please, I urge you, Texans who listen to this show and watch this show, please, I like Ted Cruz. I'd vote for him anyway. Please do not vote for this man, Colin Allred. Ted Cruz is the only option if you care about this issue at all. And it's not just Texas. It's not just Ohio. CNN now forced, thanks to the Times giving this attention, thanks to the Wall Street Journal finally giving this attention, CNN now finally forced to note this is becoming quite an issue in this race.
So the bottom line is Republicans are running on this issue because it's a winning issue for them. In fact, it's a rare issue that unites Republicans and divides Democrats. So take a look here. Thinks transgender athletes should only play on teams that match their birth gender. Look at this. 48% of Democrats, the slight plurality, actually agree with that idea. 47% oppose. Among Republicans, it's a blowout. 93% agree with the idea versus just 6% oppose.
This issue's not going away. And that brings me to my guest. All right, former prosecutor Matt Murphy, he's been on the show before. He was recently on for a show we taped to air Christmas week when I go on vacation. And it was on a different topic, and you'll see that when we get closer to Christmas. But we also got into one of the most chilling murders we've ever discussed on this show. The case centers around a biological man who's now serving a life sentence in California for luring an innocent couple onto their own boat that they were trying to sell. He posed as a potential buyer, got them to come onto their own boat, ostensibly to, kick the tires and see if he wanted to buy it. And instead, he tied them to an anchor and threw them overboard. This sick guy recently underwent a taxpayer-funded sex change operation in California, thanks to Kamala Harris. Okay? This is not the only one. Before I show you my interview with Matt Murphy, let me just tell you what happened in California. Thanks to her. She says to Brett Baier, I'll follow the law. She changed the law, as I pointed out, in California to allow this, to mandate that the taxpayers fund these surgeries. That is thanks to her. What happened in California was there were a couple of people who wanted this, who were in the prison system. And there was one named Jeffrey Brian Norsworthy, who in 2015 was serving a prison sentence for murder, who sued the state's prison system to compel them to pay for a sex change operation. Her office initially oversaw California's fight to block that surgery. This was back in the days where we knew this was wrong. The inmate wound up paroled right before the state had to cover the cost. Okay, but then there was another inmate who came forward. His name was Rodney Quine, Quine, serving a life sentence for murder. And he filed a similar lawsuit amid the state's battle over this issue. Okay, they were still battling with this guy Norsworthy, who ultimately was paroled before they had to cover the costs. But in comes this guy Rodney Quine, and the state's still engaged in this ongoing battle with Norsworthy. And at this point, Harris negotiated a settlement, quoting here from the Free Beacon, in which the state paid for Quine's sex change surgery and hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. Now, here's the thing. The law still at that point said, no, we're not paying for this surgery. But Kamala Harris worked behind the scenes to change the policy so that Quine could get it and all other inmates in California could get it and taxpayers would have to pay for it. I'm going to play you her soundbite bragging about it to an LGBTQ group. But let me just tell you a word about Quine, all right? KCRA out in California reports this guy kidnapped a 33-year-old father of three over $80 in the man's car. His daughter later came out and said her father begged for his life, 33 years old. He was merciless, this guy Quine. Quine gets imprisoned, and thanks to Kamala Harris, Quine gets a sex change operation in prison on the California taxpayers' dime, including the daughter of the victim, who said this is a slap in the face. I am paying for the sex change operation of the man who killed my father. Over $33 and a car, notwithstanding my father's begging for mercy, begging to have his life spared. She was forced by you, Kamala Harris, to pay for that operation. And here is Kamala Harris's, in her own words, bragging about that role she played in changing the policy in California. Watch.
When I was Attorney General, I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, I didn't get to choose my client, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that transgender woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need. And I believe it was not only, I know it was historic in California, but I believe actually it may have been one of the first, if not the first in the country, where I pushed for that policy.
She's proud of it. Just to clarify what I said, I'm getting all hot and bothered. I'm screwing up my facts. The victim was 33 years old and a father of three. It was over $80 in his car that he was attacked, and he was murdered. He was kidnapped. He was murdered, and he was robbed. And that is what this guy Quine was convicted of. It's disgusting. As you guys know, because you listen to my show, I thought Brett did a great job in this interview with Kamala Harris the other night, but this is where, had it been yours truly there, I would have followed up when she said, I'll follow the law. I'll follow the law. Same as President Trump. I would have said, you worked to change the law by your own admission in California. You worked to mandate that taxpayers provide these surgeries. And I would have played that soundbite. You act as though you have no agency. You did as Attorney General, and you certainly would as president. So do you or do you not stand by your 2019 ACLU questionnaire where you said you wanted at the federal level to mandate taxpayer-funded sex change operations in every prison? And will you promise the voters that you will work to undo any policy that now exists that requires it? She's so dishonest. She's as dishonest as Colin Allred. She knows exactly what she did. She not only made sure this guy Quine got a sex change surgery on the taxpayer's dime, but she made sure this other guy, who Matt Murphy told us about, got the same. And he is one of the most disgusting criminals in California history. Here's my interview with 27-year prosecutor Matt Murphy on that. Matt, I've got to ask you about this case. It's all over the news right now. This was your case. Team Trump has realized in the waning days of this campaign that the insanity that's happening with respect to women's rights versus trans rights is a very hot election issue. You're starting to see this issue with, in particular, Democrats being on the wrong side of this, raised in the Texas Senate race, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and at the presidential level between Trump and Harris. He's got an ad running in almost every NFL game, reminding people that Kamala Harris both wrote explicitly that she's in favor of taxpayer-funded sex change operations for prisoners and for illegal immigrants, and that she's on camera bragging about having done it in California. And you were the prosecutor of the one man in particular who's been in the news thanks to the Free Beacon, which raised this, who she basically, I mean, he can thank his taxpayer-funded sex change operation in California to Kamala Harris. He can thank her for it. He's the so-called yacht killer serving a life sentence, and he got a taxpayer-funded sex change surgery thanks to her. His last name is Jacobson. Can you tell us about this case?
Yeah, his birth name is Jacobson. His actual name, he changed it, is Skylar De Leon, and that's what he's known as. So, yeah, quick rundown on this. This is a guy who, this is one of the worst murders that I'd ever seen, that I ever encountered in my 17 years exclusively doing homicide cases. Essentially what he did was there's a couple named Tom and Jackie Hawks who retired and bought a yacht called the Well Deserved. And their dream was to sail up into the sunset. And they had a grandson, and they decided to sell their boat and move back to Arizona to help raise the grandson. And these are salt of the earth, wonderful people who really loved each other. She was 47, he was 57. And they went out on what's called a sea trial, which is basically a test drive for a yacht. And they sail out, and they were tied to an anchor, begging for their lives, and thrown overboard. And the person who did that, as a part of this huge conspiracy, was Skylar De Leon. And as we're investigating their disappearance, we find an Interpol liaison card for the LAPD. Turns out Skylar was responsible for a completely different murder about 10 months earlier down in Mexico of a guy named John Peter Jarvie, who Skylar lured down there, cut his throat on the side of the road, and took $50,000 off of him as a part of another big manipulative, hey, we have a no-lose, probably convinced them they had a drug deal down there or something like that. Skylar De Leon is one of the most vicious, cruelest, and sadistic human beings that has ever existed in the United States of America. This guy he brought his baby onto the boat to lure these people into a false sense of security so they would trust him enough to go out to sea with him, and then literally force them to sign bill of sale documents indicating that they had sold the boat to Skylar. They took them out to sea. Jackie Hawks was begging for her life. Tom and Jackie they subdued them with stun guns. They tasered Jackie Hawks as they physically overwhelmed her husband. They threatened each one and basically saying, if you don't sign this, we're going to hurt your husband. If you don't sign it, we're going to hurt your wife. Tom, who is a retired probation officer and fireman, somebody who really contributed to the world and society, he said, just don't hurt my wife. I'll sign anything you want. And once they got the form signed, instead of bringing them in like they promised, they took them out to sea, knowing that they were going to die. Tom Hawks was stroking his wife's hand, who was still saying, I need to see my grandchild one more time, stroking her hand, saying, it's okay, we're going to be together. And then they literally took him out on the fantail of the boat, tied him to an anchor, and threw the anchor in the cold November ocean off of Catalina Island and drowned them. And that guy, so Skylar had $50,000 in cash after the murder of John Jarvie. Now, all this sex change stuff, he had enough money to get the sex change 10 months before. And instead,
that was allegedly one of the motives. Like, one of the reasons he wanted the money was so he could pay for his own?
No, he just wanted the money. This sex change is a manipulation by Skylar De Leon. Skylar De Leon is a pathological liar. He was in the Marine Corps for about a minute before he went AWOL, but he had a force recon tattoo and would tell everybody he was in the Special Forces in the Marine Corps. This guy, so I was a DA for 26 years, Megyn. This is the best liar I have ever seen of all of them, of Ed Shin, of all of them.
Wow.
This guy showed up with these documents, and Tom and Jackie Hawks were missing. The family's worried sick. It's approaching the holidays. They were really nice, loved people with a lot of friends and family, and they just disappeared. And Skylar and his wife Jennifer show up with the boat and these bill of sale documents. And when they interviewed Skylar, and I monitored this myself, they were so convincing, but especially Skylar. And what he is he went through his life telling everybody he was a hermaphrodite. He wasn't. He was a pathological liar who would, any tale he could tell that could manipulate somebody into giving him something that he wanted, he would do it over and over and over again. So he had $50,000 in cash after the murder of John Jarvie, and they blew it on, they bought a new car, they paid off some credit card bills. He bought a $900 sex toy the day he murdered Jarvie. He crosses back into the United States, finds this thing online and purchases it with the money. So he has a little spending spree. They go through the money in about 48 hours, buying stuff, frivolous things. So the idea that he committed this murder out of some desire to have gender reaffirming surgery is absolutely bogus. This is a manipulation where he's taking advantage of the trans community, and he's garnering sympathy so that he can get additional privileges, so that he can get sympathy, so that he can get trips out of the prison. I mean, this guy's
but now he did in prison get the surgery.
Right.
I mean, he wrote.
Right.
Well, we know he did, and he confirmed it personally, and you paid for it, Matt.
Right. Me and my fellow Californians paid for that. This is a slap in the face to the victims in that family. Look, this is not a political statement, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I have nothing but support for anybody that feels that they've got to, have surgery to be a happier person. I'm all for it. I have no problem with the trans community. I support them. I've worked with a trans colleague. I'm as live and let live as you can possibly get. This man and what he did, nobody should be taking him onto their team. This guy manipulates. At least this time, people aren't going to die because they believe his bullshit. But the idea that this man is worthy of any sympathy or our tax dollars to do this, he's a condemned prisoner. He's been sentenced to death. Okay. And I know California has a moratorium on it. I understand he'll never be executed in the state of California. But the idea that we are spending precious medical resources to give Skylar De Leon, not like a burglar who's in there, who is on the eve of his surgery and got arrested, but this man who murdered these three people, especially Tom and Jackie Hawks, is a slap in the face to the victims. It really is. And it is something that people should educate themselves about this case. And part of the problem is the media that's coming out on it, they're identifying him with his birth name as John Julius Jacobson. This is Skylar De Leon, guys. He changed his name legally. And he did it after he went AWOL from the Marine Corps, in part to make it harder for them to track him down. But this guy, this is a ruthless psychopath that used his infant child, brought his child onto the boat with the express purpose of luring Tom and Jackie Hawks into a false sense of security. He literally said that to his wife, "Hey, you got to bring Haley down here so that we can put these people at ease, so we can take them out to sea." This is you don't get any more vicious as far as killings go. You don't get any darker or more disturbing. And the idea that we're spending precious medical resources on this guy, in my view, is morally wrong.
Right.
It's just that's
even
not a
by
political
Kamala Harris's
statement.
logic, it's to alleviate his emotional stress in being trapped in the wrong body. Who cares if this guy's feeling emotional stress or trauma? Good.
Yeah, there's a way that we could alleviate his emotional stress by carrying out the execution that was ordered by the judge in that case. I mean, that would alleviate it. And we could spend that limited hospital time, precious resources on a child that needs some sort of transplant. There's better uses for that money than making a monster like that comfortable in his own body. And here's my biggest problem is that it's a con. It's not real. He went ahead with the surgery, but it's all about shock. And he's going to try to get into a women's prison. Now he's a male in San Quentin. I don't know where they have him housed right now. Last I checked, which wasn't that long ago, he was still in San Quentin. But now he is a woman under the laws of the state of California. Fine, but can you really house him with men anymore? So he's been trying to get, from the minute he was arrested in our case, Megyn, he was trying to get transferred over to the women's jail. He was wearing he came in with contraband women's T-shirts. Like this has been his thing since he was arrested. It's not real. This was he was in the Marines and he was a father with 2 kids. And I understand, like, people can change and people can decide to do that. More power to them. I have no beef with any adult that wants to go through that surgery. But when you have been sentenced to death for one of the most vicious and depraved murders that turned out to be 3 murders because he murdered another innocent guy, what are we doing?
We're done.
What are we doing? What is my state doing? Like, he's been sentenced to death, but we want to make sure that he's comfortable in his own body, which is a con.
You know why you're doing
real.
it. You're doing it because Kamala Harris made a policy change. She's bragged about it on camera. She's very proud. And it's because of her, quote, good work that after she left, but he benefited from the policies. This guy was able to bill the California taxpayers, the truckers, the waitresses, the nurses for this so-called reassignment surgery.
Listen, in my circle of friends, I have plenty of, my best friend in the whole world is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. Okay, some of the best judges I've tried cases in front of are Democrats. Every Democrat I know in my world is outraged by the fact that Skylar De Leon was given this surgery. Like, this is not even a Democrat-Republican thing. I don't think this is a common sense, like, right and wrong thing. Like, this is like, it's a slap in the face to the victims' families that will never get over the horror of this murder. It really is.
That's right.
And look,
he had zero empathy. He had zero. Empathy for that.
Yes. I mean, I'm outraged by it. I don't know what's happening in my state. I just, this is one of those things. Again, this is, from my view, this transcends politics. This is a waste of resources for somebody that, there are better uses for that money because that's taxpayer. He didn't pay for that himself. He had nothing. So don't we have better uses than to spend it on something? And that's a significant surgery, right? But it's a con by him. They've been manipulated by Skylar by putting in for that. Like, the evidence against him is totally overwhelming. He's never getting out. That's not.
No, we're now funding his ongoing fraud, which may very well end up with him in a woman's prison, which California is doing by the dozens, and probably a woman getting hurt. I mean, that's honestly how these things have been going.
More articulate than I could have put it. It is an ongoing fraud. That is my problem with it. It is an ongoing fraud and manipulation. And he's just gone from this poor couple that he murdered after this pilot that he murdered. First it's the pilot, then it's the poor couple, and now it's the state of California. And everybody is like, they're still dancing to the music of this freaking psychopath. He planned that murder for months, Megyn, just so we understand. When you talk about the word comfort, he planned that meticulously for months. He brought in 2 other men on the boat with him. They drafted the documents. He made absolutely no provision in his planning for their suffering, for their comfort. He tied them to an anchor and threw them overboard. And Jackie Hawks, according to one of the co-conspirators that we rolled who testified, she was crying when she went overboard. And it's like that thing that we all had as a kid, right? That conversation we've all had around a campfire at some point. What's the worst way to die? Like fire ants or a bear or a lion, or would you burn to death or freeze to death? We've all had that conversation as kids. The haunting image that everybody was left with is, how do you cry and try to hold your breath at the same time? That's the discomfort that Jackie Hawks was put through. That's what they did to two totally innocent people. The idea that we're spending precious medical resources in an ongoing fraud to make somebody more comfortable when he made no provision for anybody else's comfort in one of the most cruel, sadistic murders I ever saw. It is just, it makes me lose sleep. It's not right. It is not right.
Matt Murphy, thank you for being one of the good guys your whole career and putting guys like that behind bars where they belong. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up, your questions. We'll be right back. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Yes, even Strudwick. It's been especially bad lately. Read the newsletter. There's an update. I can't imagine life without them, though sometimes I do. Not Thunder, but sometimes. But I love him. I love him, and I do enjoy most of my time with them. Look, my dogs have a great life. I'm sure your dogs have a great life too. But you and I both know that some dogs are not so lucky. This is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. I love Delta Rescue. Whenever you donate to anyone who claims to take care of animals, you've got to look for the words no kill. No kill. Otherwise, you know what happens if nobody adopts the dog or the cat. This, Delta Rescue, is the largest no-kill, care for life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter and safety and most of all, love. And they've been doing it now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love Thunder and Strudwick, but would love for other dogs who need care and attention and a home to find those too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. It's time to answer some of your questions in our Asked and Answered segment. Keep them coming to Megyn, M-E-G-Y-N, at megynkelly.com. Here to bring me the latest samplings, my executive producer, Steve Krakauer. Hey, Steve, what do we have?
Hey, Megyn. Okay, we've got a lot of great questions that came in to megynkelly.com and Megyn at megynkelly.com. This first one is from Diana. She wants to know, what are the odds that Joe Biden will give Donald Trump a full pardon on his last day in office as the ultimate FU to the Democratic Party?
Diana, I would put that at zero. He hates Donald Trump, and Donald Trump hates him. However, I do think he will pardon Hunter Biden, despite the fact that he has said he would not. So Hunter gets the pardon, and Trump does not.
Okay, excellent. Well, there you go. Now, this one is kind of about us and the Megyn Kelly Show. Steve, good name, Steve, not from me, though, wants to know, how has working at the Megyn Kelly Show been different or the same versus your time at the Kelly File at Fox?
Oh, it's like night and day, Steve, night and day. It's so great to be on my own. I have to tell you, just today, I was getting ready for the show. I was looking out my window. I was looking at the fall colors. I had brought my own children to school. I will have dinner with them tonight. I'm at work when they're at school, which is such a blessing. It was so different at Fox. You know, I left for work just as my kids were getting home from school. I never looked out a window. I only looked at ugly tan walls. And if I did look out a window, it was just cityscape, corporate buildings, you know, the concrete jungle. I didn't see a flower, a tree. I just love all of that. I can do things the way I want to do things, you know, just, I don't like in the morning I can work out now. There's some time. When I put the show together, I can be doing it in like comfortable settings and wearing comfortable clothing. I'm not constantly like squeezing myself into some polyester bright pink dress and getting false eyelash. It's just like my life is better. I can see my family. I can have a more relaxed day. And on the content, that's night and day too, right? It's just having more meaningful discussions, having the chance to have a show like this where you can spend the time to really explain what a liar Colin Allred is and give the example. I could never have done that, Steve Krakauer, on Fox because there's just not enough time. There's only 42, 38 usually minutes of content in a show. You can't devote it to one thing. You know, they would never have allowed that. So all of it feels like a luxury to me, and I only wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah, this is great. This is an extra episode with no limits on time. It's just like, yeah, we'll just put out and talk for as long as we need to do it. So yeah, no, it's great to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
All right, let me jump to the personal side though again, because Jennifer is a mom of 3, ages 15, 13, and 9. They don't have social media, but they're starting to get to the age where one's got a phone and they've got obviously the friends thing. So she wants to know, as a parent, how do you help them navigate serious situations as they transition to young adulthood?
Oh, Jennifer, thank you for that. As you know, our kids are almost perfectly aligned, right? Because I've got 15, 13, and 11. The social media thing, it hasn't been hard, I have to say. We just kind of said, we told them early and we continue to tell them like, it's not happening for you. Now, obviously, at some point, they're going to have social media introduced into their lives as they get older, and that's okay. Like, I realize that we can't ban it forever, but I think getting them through the most tender ages, especially girls, I mean, boys too, but especially girls, at the time when the body image is everywhere. And so like that is a gift that we give to our kids. And our kids, all the feedback we've gotten from them is they love not having it. They love being like, oh, my parents banned it. I'm not allowed. They don't have to look at Snapchat and see where all their friends are and if they're not invited. They don't have to look at all these images of girls and wonder why they don't look like that. So it's been pretty easy. The phones have it, like saying you can have a phone, but you can't have social media, is an acceptable compromise, I think, to these kids. And their friends text them. They get invited to stuff via text. They just, So I think as far as that goes, it's not as hard as people think. And even though our kids are either the only ones literally in their grades or the only one but for 2, like they're one other, it's been fine. They really... Once they kind of lived life doing it, it wasn't that big a deal for them.
All right, my last one for this week is from Margaret. She is approaching her 50s. She says she's currently changing her skincare routine. She says, your skin is gorgeous. Do you have any suggestions for Margaret?
Margaret, thank you. First of all, stay out of the sun. That's for sure, no matter what age you are. Second of all, some sort of retinol, whether it's actual like Retin-A, or the retinol products that are like a little gentler, get some sort of retinol product going on your skin. My skin is really sensitive, so I had to start by doing it just 1 day a week. And then once your skin isn't getting flaky, you can do like a Monday and a Friday. And then after a couple weeks of that, you can add in a Wednesday. And then eventually you can get up to maybe 5 days a week. And I am telling you, it shrinks your pores. It gets rid of redness. This is for guys too, because I always feel bad for the guys. They don't wear makeup. So if you have imperfect skin, it's kind of like, oh, you don't have to deal with it. No, try a retinol product because you can really make your pores smaller. You can get rid of redness on your face, and it fights wrinkles and stimulates collagen. So I think it's a game changer. And if you do nothing else, ask your derm about some sort of Retin-A product, that to stay out of the sun. And last but not least, I have recently begun using a red light, and I love my red light therapy. I really think it's making a difference in like my complexion, like the getting redness out and like maybe a little like sun damage. I wish I had taken a before with a naked face so you could see the after, but I myself am definitely noticing. I just do 10 minutes a day. Do 10 minutes in the morning. You can get the fancy machine that costs $1,000, or you can get the cheaper stuff that costs $200. It's not that expensive, and it makes a big difference 10 minutes a day.
All right. Love it. Great questions. Great answers. Back again next week.
Thanks for writing in, everybody. We appreciate it. Again, it's Megyn, Megyn, at MegynKelly.com. Okay, and before we wrap up this episode, it is time for another edition of Thanks But No Thanks, where we say thanks but no thanks to something bubbling up in the news. Today, we're talking candles. It is that time of year, those aromas of fall giving way to Thanksgiving and the holiday season, and you might be making your way to Bath & Body Works at your local mall to check out their just released new Christmas collection for 2024. There's Frosted Forest and Frozen Lake, Winter Golden Pear, and Frosted Coconut Snowball. Wait, what? Okay, and then there's that red one in the corner called Snowed In. Sounds pretty normal. According to Bath & Body Works, Snowed In has fragrances that include sweet musk and cozy vanilla and creamy buttermint, whatever that means. But look a little closer. Really think about what that snowflake design brings up in your mind. What does that look like to you. And what you will find is what the internet has dubbed the Ku Klux Klandle. Yes, that stylized partial snowflake is actually a bunch of Klansmen wearing their white hoods. It looks identical. Bath & Body Works, what are you doing? Who screened this? The snowed-in design used to be a window overlooking a snowy landscape. Perfect. But now they decided it needed upgrading, I guess, and they have stepped right into a racist sense PR nightmare. At least that's the determination of the internet, which, as we know, always acts perfectly rationally. It was not long until the executives at Bath & Body Works issued a statement that reads, quote, "At Bath & Body Works, we are committed to listening to our teams and customers and committed to fixing any mistakes we make, even those that are unintentional like this one. We apologize to anyone we've offended and are swiftly working to have this item removed and are evaluating our process going forward." Yes, there will be a great replacement of this racist candle from all the mega malls in America. But unfortunately, not everyone got the memo. You see, last week over on the Candle channel on YouTube, yes, that's a thing, run by the nation's preeminent candle reviewer, Kent, the new snowed-in candle got its time in the spotlight.
Moving on, we have snowed in right here, and that's what that looks like. We have like a pink metallic feel to this one. And yeah, I was like, what is this gonna be? Like, is it gonna be Twisted Peppermint? But it isn't. This is actually a new fragrance, in my opinion, at least of one I've smelled that's gone wide. And this actually, oh my God, like when I smelled this immediately, I was like, whoa, like core memory unlocked, core fragrance memory unlocked. And I was like, oh my God, this smells like marshmallow musk or vanilla musk with peppermint. So yeah, it's nice. It's pretty and it's cute. So we'll see how it does. So snowed in right there.
Kent. Oh, Kent. Oh no. We've got a creamy buttermint insurrection on our hands. No one told Kent about it. He's just sitting there rambling on about marshmallow musk with peppermint. Oh, Kent, I hope you're watching. Please don't cancel Kent. The guy just enjoys sniffing candles. He doesn't know he's holding a lovely smelling symbol of white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klandle. Because look, in America, there are very fine candles on both sides. Yes, even that frosted coconut snowball nonsense. But to those secret racists pushing subconscious white supremacist messaging, when we are just trying to sniff some of that sweet musk, cozy vanilla, and creamy buttermint, we are saying thanks, but no thanks. And thank all of you for joining me today. We'll see you next time.